In 560 BC, a sculptor walked into a tyrant's palace, carrying the blueprints for a giant bronze bull, and he promised the king that this bull would turn the screams of dying men into beautiful music. The king loved the idea so much that he made the sculptor climb inside first, lit a fire underneath, and listened as the inventor became the first victim of his own creation. But that bull was only the beginning, because humanity spent the next 3,000 years dreaming up methods so twisted that some of them kept victims alive and suffering for over 17 days straight. Number 20. Death by elephant. Long before firing squads and electric chairs existed, the empires of South and Southeast Asia had a very different idea of what public execution should look like, and it involved a 5-ton animal trained to kill on command. Rulers in India, Persia, and parts of Southeast Asia would bring condemned prisoners into a public square, force them to their knees, and then signal a war elephant to crush their skulls. But these elephants were not just stomping randomly. Handlers had trained them to prolong the process, sometimes breaking limbs one at a time before delivering the final blow. The Mughal Empire used this method well into the 1800s, and European travelers who witnessed it wrote home describing scenes they could not believe were real. And somehow, that is the tamest entry on this entire list. Number 19. The Blood Eagle. The Vikings earned their reputation for violence on the battlefield, but nothing they did in open combat compared to what they reserved for their greatest enemies. The Blood Eagle, described in multiple Norse sagas, involved pinning a victim face down, cutting open their back along the spine, breaking the ribs away from the backbone one by one, and then pulling the lungs out through the opening so they spread wide like a pair of wings. King Aella of Northumbria suffered this fate around 867 AD at the hands of the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, as revenge for throwing their father into a pit of snakes. Whether every detail happened exactly as the sagas describe is still debated, but multiple independent sources reference the same method, and that alone tells you something about the world the Vikings lived in. And if you think a Viking revenge killing sounds bad, wait until you hear what medieval Europe was doing with a pot of boiling water. Number 18. Boiling alive. Imagine being lowered feet first into a cauldron of boiling water, oil, or even molten lead, with your executioner controlling exactly how slowly you went in. During the reign of Henry VIII in the 1530s, England passed a law making boiling the official punishment for poisoners. A cook named Richard Roos was one of the first to be executed under that law in 1531 after poisoning a pot of soup that killed 2 people. Records from the era show that some victims were kept alive in the boiling liquid for up to 2 hours before they finally died. A Japanese bandit named Ishikawa Goemon met this same fate in the late 1500s after attempting to kill the warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi. According to local accounts, he was boiled alive in an iron cauldron in front of the entire city of Kyoto while holding his young son above the liquid, desperately trying to keep the boy from sinking in. 2 hours in boiling oil, and that still only gets you number 18 on this list. Number 17. Flaying. Skinning a person alive has been documented as far back as 911 BC during the Assyrian Empire, and the Assyrians were proud enough of it to carve images of themselves flaying captured enemies directly into the walls of their own palaces. The process could keep a victim alive and conscious through most of it, because the skin itself contains fewer major blood vessels than the tissue underneath. A Persian judge named Sisamnes was flayed alive around 500 BC by King Cambyses II after being caught taking bribes. And according to the historian Herodotus, the king then draped the judge's skin over the courtroom chair as a permanent warning to whoever sat in it next. But flaying at least ended in death within hours. the next entry on this list could drag out suffering for weeks. Number 16. Immurement. Being sealed alive inside a wall sounds like something from a horror movie, but it was a real method of execution used from ancient Rome all the way into the early 1900s. The Vestal Virgins of Rome faced this punishment if they broke their vows, and they were entombed underground with just a small amount of food and water, left to slowly starve in total darkness. The most disturbing recorded case happened in Morocco in 1906, when a shoemaker named Hajj Mohammed Mesfui was convicted of murdering 36 women. His sentence was to be bricked into a small recess in the wall of the central bazaar in Marrakesh, standing upright while the city went about its business around him as he slowly died behind the stone. 36 murders, and his punishment was to become part of the architecture. But at least his suffering was silent. The next method on this list made sure everyone could hear it. Number 15. Sawing in half. The condemned person was hung upside down by their ankles so that blood would rush to their head, and then 2 executioners would begin sawing through the body, starting from between the legs and working downward toward the skull. Because the victim was inverted, the brain received enough blood flow to prevent them from losing consciousness. Some accounts claim that victims remained conscious until the saw reached their navel. This method appeared in biblical-era references across medieval Europe and in parts of China well into the 1600s. And yet, that level of cruelty still falls short of the device that comes next. Number 14. The brazen bull. Remember that bronze bull from the beginning of this video? The full story is even worse than what you already heard. Around 560 BC, a sculptor named Perilos of Athens designed this hollow bronze statue for Phalaris, the tyrant of Acragas in Sicily. The bull had a trapdoor in the side and a system of tubes through the head that converted the screams of the person being roasted alive into sounds resembling a bellowing bull. Phalaris ordered Perilos to climb inside and demonstrate how the pipes worked. The moment the sculptor stepped in, the king locked the door and lit a fire underneath. Perilos survived only because Phalaris pulled him out half dead and then had him thrown off a cliff. And in a twist of pure poetic justice, Phalaris himself was overthrown by his own people and, according to the poet Pindar, was killed inside the very same bull he had used on so many others. The inventor, the tyrant, and the device, all consumed by the same fire. But if you think being roasted alive inside a metal statue is as bad as it gets, you have clearly never heard of crucifixion. Number 13. Crucifixion. The Romans perfected crucifixion into one of the slowest public executions ever designed. Victims were stripped, beaten with leather whips embedded with bone and metal, and then forced to carry the crossbeam to the execution site while crowds watched. Once nailed to the cross, a person could survive anywhere from a few hours to several days. Death came from a combination of shock, dehydration, and gradual suffocation, because the position made breathing harder with every passing hour, and each breath required the victim to push up on their nailed feet just to fill their lungs. After the slave revolt led by Spartacus was crushed in 71 BC, the Romans crucified over 6,000 captured rebels along the Appian Way. That works out to roughly one dying body every 90 feet for more than 100 miles of road between Capua and Rome. And we are still only at the halfway point of this list. Number 12. Scaphism. The ancient Persians came up with something so horrifying that even reading about it feels like an endurance test, and this method had its own nickname. They called it the boats. The victim was stripped and tied between 2 boats, with their arms, legs, and head sticking out. then force-fed a mixture of milk and honey until they developed severe diarrhea. The same mixture was smeared over their exposed skin, and the entire contraption was left floating on a stagnant pond under the open sun.